60% of prehistoric humans were dead before age 15. You are Grug. You are 40 years old. You have survived. And your tribe is looking at you like you are a problem to solve. Here is the question. You cannot run as fast as the young Grugs. You cannot throw a spear as hard. You wake up every morning and something new hurts and you have no idea why. By every logical measure, you are a net negative to a group of people who move constantly, eat rarely, and have no time for passengers. So why did they keep you? Why did they feed you? Why, after hundreds of thousands of years of brutal natural selection, did old Grug not just get quietly left behind the mammoth? The answer is one of the most surprising things about our entire species. And it starts with a memory. Let us set the scene. Grug's tribe is not a family vacation. It is a startup with a 0% survival margin and absolutely no HR department. Grug and between 20 and 50 other people walk somewhere between 4 and 9 miles every single day looking for food. There are no maps. There are no stores. There is no backup plan. If you do not find food today, there is a decent chance you do not find out what happens tomorrow. This is not a metaphor. This is Tuesday. Now throw in a drought. A real drought. Not of my lawn is getting crunchy drought. A multi-year, river-drying, plant-killing, animal migration reversing drought that turns the landscape into something your modern self would look at and say, okay, we're moving. Except young Grug has never seen this before. Young Grug has no idea where the water went, where the animals went, where the edible plants moved to, or whether that weird root near the dry riverbed will feed the children or kill the children. But here is the crazy part. Old Grug knows. Old Grug was here 50 years ago when this exact thing happened. Old Grug watched her mother's mother walk the tribe 3 days east to a hidden spring that does not dry out, even when everything else does. Old Grug remembers that the tubers near the black rocks are still edible in the dry season when nothing else is. Old Grug is, functionally, a walking hard drive. And you cannot back this up to the cloud. You cannot Google it. If you abandon Old Grug, that information is gone forever. You just deleted your survival file. This is not a theory. Anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer populations in the Kalahari Desert found something extraordinary. During severe droughts, older women in the group had detailed mental maps of water sources and food caches that nobody else knew about. Sources that only became relevant once every few decades. The young and strong members of the group could not have found these on their own. The elders were not passengers. The elders were the GPS. And it gets worse for young Grug's ego. Because it was not just geography. It was poison. The prehistoric world was absolutely full of things that wanted to kill you and looked exactly like things that did not. There are plants that look like food and are food. There are plants that look like food and will make you wish you had been eaten by something instead. Knowing the difference between these two categories is, medically speaking, quite important. Old Grug remembered which mushroom killed the fast guy from the southern group 3 decades ago. Old Grug watched what happened when somebody ate the bright red berries near the waterfall. Old Grug's entire brain was a poison database maintained over 6 decades at the cost of several Grugs who are no longer with us. You did not learn this stuff in a classroom. You learned it because somebody who loved you grabbed your arm and said no. Not that one. Here is your modern mirror. Imagine your most annoying relative at dinner who keeps telling you the same story about something that happened before you were born. You do not want to hear it. You are on your phone. You are nodding and waiting for it to end. Now imagine that story is, and that is how you do not accidentally poison the children. Different vibe. That is Old Grug. Every single story is load-bearing. The boring dinner conversation is the entire reason the tribe still exists. Grug is nodding right now. Grug has a cousin who did not listen. Grug will not say more. But here is where it gets genuinely wild. Because Old Grug had another job. And this one changed everything. Babysitting. Before you laugh, sit with this for a second. A hunting band moves fast, covers miles, deals with predators, climbs, runs, and occasionally sprints away from something with a lot of teeth. You cannot do that with a 2-year-old attached to you. You cannot pursue a deer while also preventing a toddler from walking directly into a river. Small children are, energetically speaking, a logistical crisis. So who watched the kids while the hunters hunted and the foragers foraged? Old Grug watched the kids. And this was not a small thing. Anthropologists call this the grandmother hypothesis, and it is one of the most debated and well-supported ideas in the entire field of human evolution. The theory, developed most famously by researcher Kristen Hawkes based on decades of fieldwork, goes like this. When grandmothers helped provision and care for grandchildren, mothers could have more children more frequently. More children survived. Tribes with grandmothers out-reproduced tribes without them. Over tens of thousands of years, this created evolutionary pressure for humans to live longer past reproductive age than almost any other primate. You live as long as you do partly because your ancient ancestors had good grandmothers. That is not poetic. That is population biology. The modern version of this is your mom watching your kids for a weekend and saving you $400 in childcare. Scale that back 50,000 years and it is the reason you exist at all. Grug is choosing not to make this weird, but it is at least a little weird. And it gets even better. Because old Grug was also the story. In a world with no writing, the entire archive of human knowledge was stored in exactly one place. Heads. That means every piece of information your group needed to survive, from how to make a specific type of tool, to which animals were dangerous in which seasons, to how to navigate a landscape you only visited once in a generation, lived inside the oldest people in the group. The moment you lost that person, you lost the data. No backup. No duplicate. Just gone. Researchers studying modern populations of long-lived foragers have found that elders hold disproportionate amounts of what is called low-frequency high-value knowledge. That is the academic way of saying they know the stuff that saves your life but only comes up once every 30 years. The young Grugs are great at the everyday stuff. The old Grugs are the specialists for the catastrophes. And catastrophes, in the prehistoric world, were not rare. They were scheduled. Here is the callback you were waiting for. Remember the drought? The poison plants? The hidden spring that only old Grug knew about? Put all three together and you have the complete picture. A tribe that valued its elders did not just feel nicer. It survived droughts that killed neighboring tribes. It did not poison its own children when food got desperate. It found water when there was no water. The warmth toward old Grug was not just sentiment. It was a competitive advantage that played out over hundreds of thousands of years and produced a species that, for better or worse, is now watching YouTube. Now, to be fair to the full picture. Old Grug did not have it perfect. Life at 40 in the Paleolithic was not a retirement plan. The aches were real. The body was failing. There was no ibuprofen and there was definitely no health insurance and there was certainly no chiropractor, which is a shame because Grug has opinions about what sleeping on the ground for 40 years does to a spine. Grug will leave it there. If you got seriously hurt, the math changed fast. A broken leg was not an inconvenience. A broken leg was a full restructuring of the group's survival equation. The tribe would try. Evidence of healed injuries in the fossil record tells us that prehistoric people cared for the wounded and the sick at significant cost to themselves. A 45,000-year-old Neanderthal skeleton found in Shanidar Cave in Iraq showed evidence of extensive injuries sustained early in life, including a withered arm and probable blindness in one eye. This individual survived for years after those injuries. Somebody fed him. Somebody kept him warm. Somebody looked at this non-productive, high-maintenance person and decided he was worth it. That is not just survival strategy. That is something else. But here is the line Grug wants to leave you with. The reason old Grug did not get left behind is not because the tribe was kind. The tribe was kind because old Grug made kindness profitable. Old Grug took all the ways you become less useful with age, the slower legs, the fading strength, the constant commentary about everything, and turned them into the most valuable package in the group. The knowledge. The memory. The stories that were also maps. The face that said no, not that mushroom. Old Grug was not a burden. Old Grug was the subscription service everybody forgot to cancel and then realized they desperately needed when the drought hit. Grug is 40 years old and something new hurts every morning, and Grug would like to be remembered for the part about the drought. If you want more Grug explaining things that are surprisingly not terrible about the people who came before us, there is a button below that would make Grug very happy. Grug is not begging. Grug is simply noting that the button exists and that survival often depends on small, consistent actions. Click the button. Grug says nothing more about it.